Hello class, so my name is Howard Chavez and today's lecture is going to be over one of my favorite skills that I like to show off sometimes to friends and just to kind of show off a little cool and fun skill is learning how to juggle. So I learned how to juggle several years ago in high school. We actually had a juggling club that I would go to after school. It was actually in the off season of football and soccer. That's kind of where I learned how to juggle. So today we're going to be learning some of the basic movements, how to juggle, and we're going to go from 1 to 3 items today, as well as learning to juggle with one hand as well as 2 hands. Now, today, hopefully, by the end of this, you'll be able to become a basic, competent, entry-level juggler. And the purpose of learning how to juggle, in my opinion, is it's a new skill that you're able to use, and you're really able to impress a lot of your family and friends and just other strangers. You know, just anywhere you are, you can always just pick a couple of things up. Hopefully, after a lot of practice, you'll be able to do with random objects or just any spherical object. And a lot of people think it's really cool, and it's actually a very simple task once you practice it a little bit, but it's one of my favorite skills that I really enjoy. So what we're going to start off with is actually choosing your object that you're going to juggle. So there's a few things to keep in mind when you're selecting what you want to juggle. So the first one would be shape. So shape really kind of plays an effect when you're trying to grasp and throw it. You have to take in consideration how easy the object is to catch and throw, as well as how it will react with air resistance. And then there's weight as well. So usually a little bit heavier items are a little bit easier to keep under control just when you're learning. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a bit. Whereas some of the lighter items are actually sometimes harder, just because you might not always have as great control over them, and you may end up losing them and then maybe rolling away from you. But with keeping that in mind, you also don't want to be trying to juggle bowling balls right away, for example, because keep in mind that a tennis ball hurts a lot less than a bowling ball if it gets dropped on your foot. So that's one good rule to go by. Another thing that goes with that is the sharpness and flammability. So later on, if you go on to the expertise level of this course, you'll be able to learn how to juggle a little bit more dangerous things, including knives or torches. So those are flammable and sharp objects. And you'll want to be able to keep that in mind as you're going through this, just because if you do pick up some random objects, make sure they're not sharp. So there are 3 categories. I ended up dividing some of the objects that you'll be able to juggle. So the first one, just kind of beginner items, include your hacky sacks. So they're a little bit heavier, and I think they're easier to begin learning with, just because if you drop them, they don't roll away. The object right after that that most people tend to have are tennis balls or baseballs. Those are also easy to learn with. The negative to that is that if you drop them or you miss, they tend to bounce and roll away, so sometimes you might get a little bit frustrated just having to chase your objects. After that includes fruit. So when I was learning how to juggle, I actually would pick up random fruit and start juggling. So apples, oranges, grapefruits, limes, things like that, which didn't always make my mom very happy, but it was nice to kind of get that practice in, so I was able to keep my skills up to date. Now we also have an intermediate level, that once you get past those beginning level objects, you're able to get more comfortable with your form and everything, that you're able to move on to these objects, which the technique is very similar, but it does change a little bit. And some of those items include rings and pins. Those you kind of have to throw in a little bit more outward motion versus a circular motion that we'll learn about for the beginning objects. And then in that category, I also included random objects, just because whenever you're trying to show off or do some of these skills, you might try to impress friends by juggling 3 random objects. So just being that they're different shapes and weights, it might be a little bit trickier to figure out the balance, but it's not too difficult, and I think most of you will be able to pick it up soon after completing the beginning items and getting your form down. Now, there's a third level of objects that I also included, and that is the expertise level of objects. So for liability reasons, I was not allowed to demonstrate these, juggling these objects. Apparently it's not safe for a lecture, but some of those objects include juggling knives, torches, and chainsaws. Apparently I'm not covered by my insurance in case I do this, and the course has decided to not take liability for me getting hurt. So I won't be able to juggle any of those items today for you, but maybe in a later lecture we'll be able to go over some of those objects in the expertise category. But for today, we're going to go into learning the basics and start going into how to juggle. And we will be using tennis balls for today. So this is what we will be used on learning how to juggle today. So in learning the basics, we're going to start off with one ball and two hands. So with this, we're kind of going to get the little basic feel of what it's like to learn how to juggle, and kind of just starting little by little and moving our way up. So the first thing you're going to want to do is kind of be able to look up and focus either on a point on a wall or in the ceiling, just kind of where you have a point of focus. Now in doing that, you're also going to want to imagine an arch that's going to connect each hand. So that's going to be the arch that your ball is going to be following. So you're going to be wanting to toss that ball in that motion while keeping your focus on the ceiling or wall and just kind of having that. So for this, it's going to take a lot of focus and trust in your peripheral vision and your hands that you will catch the ball. Just because you can't be following the ball each time, that's going to really throw you off, especially when you start doing 2 or 3 balls. You want to trust yourself, and it might take a little bit, and that sometimes gets frustrating for people. But when doing this, you're going to be wanting to count to 1. So it's going to feel a little weird at first because it kind of doesn't make sense, but it'll come into play when you're doing 2 and 3 balls, just that you're able to keep that rhythm. But trust me on this, and you're going to want to count to 1 as you're throwing the ball. Now, when throwing the ball, it's not going to be a get your shoulder in there and throw it as hard as you can. You want a nice, easy control of the ball. So you're actually going to be locking your wrist quite a bit, so you don't want to be kind of flicking it towards you, just because sometimes that has a tendency to either throw the ball forward or throw the ball backwards. You kind of want to be able to throw it straight up with a little bit of an arch. So it has a lot to do with just throwing with your elbows and moving your elbows, kind of keeping your wrist locked. So with that, it's kind of just a nice, easy toss with your hand. It's gonna imagine like a trampoline. It just kind of comes in and goes out. So it's just in and out versus a throw. And sometimes that's where you need to start. That's okay. It's just kind of nice, easy toss. You can do that with both hands. Now, back to imagining that point and following that arch. So this is how it's going to look when you're practicing. So it's just going to be a 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Now I know it seems a little silly at first, but trust me, this is kind of where you need to start just to being able to get used to tossing the ball. Go ahead and practice that step, and then once you're ready, you can move on to the next step. Stage 2. So for this stage, we'll be doing 2 balls and 2 hands. So you're going to keep that same image or point of focus that you've been using on either a ceiling or a wall as you did in the first stage. But this time, instead of imagining that arch, you're going to imagine an X that the ball is going to go. So the ball is going to go this way, and then the other ball is going to go this way, and it's going to kind of cross its path. It's still going to be making an arch, just based off where you're throwing it. They're going to cross and make an X. Now, when you are starting out, focus on where the ball is at its highest point. The first ball especially, once it hits its highest point, that is when you are going to want to toss your second ball. You don't want to toss your first ball and toss your second ball right away just because you'll lose control of it, and that's not good. It takes a lot of patience to kind of figure out and get used to watching the ball at its highest point and releasing the second ball. Now, as I mentioned, the counting is going to come into play a lot more in this one, so you're still going to be saying 1 when you release the first ball, and this time you're going to be saying 2 when you release the second ball. So it's going to be a 1, 2, and then you're going to catch the balls and you're going to start over. And you're going to repeat that over and over. So it's going to be 1, 2, 1, 2 until you get the hang of it. So in demonstrating for you, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to be a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, remember to trust your peripheral visions and trust your hands that you will catch the ball. You may have to move your hands a little bit, but try not to move your head around and lose focus. So repeat this stage. This stage does get a little bit frustrating sometimes, so please keep at it, keep practicing, and keep counting. That really does help. Like I said, it feels weird, but once you kind of get that rhythm down, it starts getting easier from then. So remember, 1, 2, 1, 2. Welcome to stage 3. So this is the final stage in learning how to get a basic juggle down. This is the one you've been waiting for. This is where we put everything we just learned in stage 1 and stage 2 together. This is where the fun really comes in. So you're gonna, when doing 3 balls, it's going to be very similar to 2 balls, except it's going to be in a continuous motion. You're going to want to keep in mind your point of focus and the ceiling of the wall that we've been mentioning all through our lecture, and you're going to want to remember that X pattern. And we did the counting part, so we did the 1, 2. This is going to be a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 as you keep going. And like I said, counting does become very important. It keeps your mind focused and being able to keep your rhythm going. It really does help. It's going to feel weird, and people watching you practice might look a little crazy counting a 1, 2. So keep with it. I will have to warn you, for most people, this is the most frustrating stage, and this is where most of them do decide to quit, and they think they just can't do it. Please do not quit. It will take some practice before you're able to get this down. It's not something you're going to be able to pick up on the first time or the second or third, fourth time. You know, it will take some time and practice for you to get this down. So like I mentioned, you're going to start off with the 2 balls in your dominant hand, because that's going to be the 1, and then you're going to do the 2, and then you're going to repeat the 1, so you're already going to have that 3rd ball in your dominant hand to start the next cycle. So I'm just going to demonstrate what it looks like to get the cycles going. So I'll do a couple cycles with the counting. So it's going to look like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So I know I made it look a little bit easier. Trust me, you will get there. It just does take some time. Things to keep in mind is being able to keep that point of focus and trusting yourself that you're going to catch it, getting used to that rhythm. It may take a little bit of time. It probably will. And if you have to do just 1 cycle, stop, reset, that's perfectly fine. Stay at that stage until you're able to do 2 cycles, and then so you'll be able to get 3 cycles, and then after that you'll be able to get more. So if you have to go 1, 2, 1, and then stop, that's perfectly fine. Next thing you know, you'll be doing 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, stop, and just being able to reset. So once again, keep that point of focus, keep your 1, 2s, keep that X in mind, trust yourselves, practice, and have patience. Remember, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Good luck. Alright guys, you're in luck. This is an extra learning lecture. So for this one, you hopefully have gotten your basic juggling down, and we're going to learn how to do 2 balls in 1 hand. So this one is a little bit of a higher difficulty level. It's just a little bit of a different motion. does take a little bit of time to get used to it. A couple of things, once you get it down, you're actually able to throw it into your basic juggle, so you'll be able to go from 3 to 2 to 3 to 2, back to 3, and it looks pretty cool when you put it all together. Now, this one you're going to want to be able to keep that point of focus as you did with the other one, but you're going to want to keep it above your hand, and you're going to want to imagine a clockwise rotation. You can do it counterclockwise. That is a little bit difficult, a little bit more difficult, just because it's an outward throw from your wrist versus kind of a natural inward rotation. Now, it will take a little bit of time to kind of get used to throwing your wrist like that and getting that rotation down. And you're going to want to keep that counting pattern that, as we've been talking about, of 1, 2, 1, 2. Except this time it's just going to be with one hand. So do stay calm with this and try to keep the balls under control, just because it's a little bit easier. But when you get it down, this is kind of what it looks like. It'll be a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Like I said, I know I make it look a lot easier, but it's after practice, practice, and practice that you're able to get it down. Just remember to keep that point of focus, trust yourself, stay calm, don't get frustrated, and you'll be able to get juggling down. Good luck. Well, class, that's it for today. I really do hope you enjoyed this lecture and hopefully learned how to juggle. If you didn't, that's perfectly okay. I hope that you're going to give it a try and keep trying it out and take some practice. Like I said, it does take some time. It actually did take me quite a bit of time to be able to figure it out. I just kind of had a lot of patience and kept practicing. Believe it or not, it was a little bit of a stress reliever for me, just to kind of be able to practice and clear my mind and just practice and have some fun with it. Like I said, it's a pretty cool skill. I like it. A lot of people seem to think it's really cool. So keep going, keep trying. That's all I really ask for, and hopefully you'll be able to get it down after several tries. So good luck and keep on juggling.